Good afternoon, alien enthusiasts, and welcome to a very special Angry Alien Bulletin. There have been a number of whistleblowers who have been coming out lately, at least former U.S. military whistleblowers who have at least allegedly a close connection to the UAP phenomenon, who are claiming that, yes, indeed, the U.S. government does have a secret reverse engineering and UFO retrieval program, whatever you want to call that, and that the government, the military, has been retrieving craft that are non-human intelligence oriented. And so essentially everything that David Grush has said up to this point is true. But there's a big difference about this particular whistleblower. Not only does he claim that he was personally involved with the retrieval of advanced non-human craft, but he also has a tiny piece of footage, a little clip carried out with night finder equipment showing a strange egg-shaped object, approximately 6 meters in length, perhaps a couple of meters in diameter, difficult to say exactly, that he claims that the Air Force retrieved and relocated to an open field where it was subsequently retrieved for analysis. Now, what's different about this footage is the fact that it's not really blurry or indistinct or anything like that, not poor quality. It's the sort of quality one would expect with a night finder, and there is unquestionably something egg-shaped about the size that he described that's in the footage. But there are certainly a large number of skeptics who have put forward their theories as to what this object might be. Just an ordinary, mundane object. The most common one is a military observation balloon known as an aerostat. And actually, they've done visual comparisons with the rough shape of this object and the shape of some military aerostats that might fit the description, that might be something similar. So yes, that could indeed be the case, or it could be a variety of other types of mundane objects. I mean, we're not getting enough detail out of this image in order to be 100% certain, nor is this object doing anything that suggests anomalous behavior. It isn't flying, it isn't moving, it isn't doing anything except being carried around by a helicopter. However, I'm going to tell you why I believe that this man is telling the truth, why I think there's some validity to this footage and to his testimony, and why the mundane explanations that we have for this footage has, up to this point, in my opinion, not debunked his testimony at all. This is the footage provided by Air Force veteran and helicopter pilot Jake Barber. He's made some pretty shocking claims about UFOs and alien retrieval programs supposedly run by the U.S. government. He said he was working for the government to assist downed craft when one night the, quote, communication process and procedure was modified and he witnessed something that he believes was of extraterrestrial origin. He was told to fly a helicopter to a specific area when he came 150 feet, and the reason it's that distance is because that's the length of the tether that he used to recover the object, and it was an egg-shaped object with no engine or thermal signals. Quote, "I saw an egg, a white egg," the pilot exclaimed. "It's inconsistent with anything I'd seen before." His next order was to retrieve it from the ground, and at that moment he knew for sure that this craft was not of this world. Quote, "I can also tell you that the reaction by my team, we all knew we were dealing with something extraordinary," the pilot said. "Over the last couple of years, it's been confirmed to me by ranking members of the UAP task force that what we were working with that night was, in fact, NHI, or non-human intelligence, and it was not a unique experience." UAP, of course, stands for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, a term used by the Department of Defense to describe mysterious objects in the sky. 3 high-level military veterans are said to corroborate Barber's story. Again, this is according to a story by NewsNation. Now, skeptics have already been quick to attack this man's account of what happened that night, and they have a fairly compelling explanation as to what this object that you're looking at right now might be, although this suggests that Mr. Barber is either insane or a lying sack of shit. And yes, I'm going to use brutal language like that because that is what these people are essentially accusing this man of, and let me explain why. The skeptics are saying that this object is an aerostat, an observation balloon. And by the way, I've seen these a number of times myself. There's a very large one that operates close to South Padre Island because it's right on the U.S.-Mexico border and is used by U.S. Border Control in order to watch for illegal immigrants crossing the Rio Grande River. Jake Barber, as an experienced pilot, would absolutely know what a military aerostat looked like and could not have misidentified this object. The only way that the object in this footage could possibly be an aerostat balloon is if this man is trying to pass off a very commonly used piece of military equipment as being non-human intelligence technology. And I don't see how this guy could possibly think that he could get away with something like that, and not only that, testify in front of Congress about his experiences as well, and put himself at risk of going to federal prison. And there's another important thing to consider. This is not the first time that a credible witness has reported an object like this. Indeed, an incident very similar to this one, but far more dramatic, took place in 1964. Years before Mr. Barber, or myself for that matter, were even born. At approximately 5:45 on the 24th of April 1964, while giving chase to a car in Socorro, New Mexico, Mr. Lonnie Zamora, who was a police officer in this area, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of you are familiar with this story, heard what he believed to be a roar and saw a flame in the sky to the southwest, approximately a half-mile away. Mr. Zamora believed that a dynamite shack in the area had blown up and decided to go to the shack and not pursue the speeding automobile. Mr. Zamora claimed that the flame was bluish and sort of orange in color as well. However, he could not tell the size of the flame, which was slowly descending. The flame was of a narrow type and streamed down into sort of a funnel shape. At this time, he was still driving his car and did not pay too much attention. Mr. Zamora traveled slowly on the gravel road westward towards the object. At first glance, the object appeared as a car upside down. He thought some kids might have turned it over. At this point, he saw 2 people in white coveralls quite close to the object. One of these persons seemed to stop and look straight at him and seemed startled. At this point, Mr. Zamora was traveling with the idea of helping them. The object was like aluminum white, smooth, but not like chrome. Object was oval shape and at first glance appeared to look like an overturned white automobile. The only time that Mr. Zamora saw the 2 people in white coveralls was when he stopped, probably 2 seconds or so. The 2 persons appeared to be normal in shape, and at this point, Mr. Zamora proceeded toward the object and radioed the sheriff's office at Socorro of a possible accident. He informed the Socorro office that he would be busy and out of his car checking the object. Mr. Zamora stopped his car while he was still talking on the radio and started to get out. He finished his conversation with the sheriff's office and proceeded towards where the object was. He then heard a roar, a very loud roar, but not like a jet, which was of low frequency and then rose in frequency and very, very loud. At the same time that the roar was heard, he saw a flame. The flame was under the object. The object started to go straight up slowly. The object rose slowly and the flame was coming from the bottom. The color was light blue and sort of orange, but he saw no smoke. However, there was dust in the immediate area. As soon as Mr. Zamora saw the flame and heard the roar, he turned and ran away from the object. He bumped his leg on the back fender of his automobile, lost his glasses, fell to the ground, got up, and proceeded away from the object for at least another 50 feet. He fell to the ground and covered himself like an ostrich, expecting the object to blow up. The roar lasted for a few seconds. When there was complete silence, he lifted up his head and saw the object going away from him. The object appeared to go straight up to an altitude of around 15 feet and then proceed slowly towards the dynamite shack, where it cleared the shack by what appeared to be around 3 feet. The object traveled 6 miles in 3 minutes. Mr. Zamora went back to his car and asked the radio operator at the station to look out the window and see if he could spot the object. The radio operator failed to spot the object because he was facing north and could not see the object from that angle. Mr. Zamora claims that the object had no flame whatsoever, as it was flying over the ground and could see no smoke. After the object had left the area, Sergeant Chaves of the New Mexico State Patrol arrived at the scene. Sergeant Chaves, I think it's Chaves, it might be Chavez to be honest, I'm not sure, claims that Mr. Zamora was perspiring and very white, very pale. Sergeant Chavez and Mr. Zamora saw a burning brush and proceeded to the spot where the object had first been seen. Mr. Zamora claims that the object had 2 legs slanted outwards towards the ground, and also claims that he distinctly heard 2 or 3 loud thumps, like someone possibly shutting or opening a door. Now, the Project Blue Book investigator came to the following conclusions. Quote, "It is my belief that Mr. Zamora is telling the truth and that he did indeed see a man-made object, which probably belongs to one of the services. There is no indication that this vehicle which Mr. Zamora saw came from outer space now or ever. However, in all the decades that have passed since this very famous incident, the military has never taken ownership for this vehicle, assuming that it was an experimental craft of some kind, which seems very odd given the fact that so many years have passed since 1964, and you would think we would get some sort of explanation from Aero, from the Pentagon, from someone to give us an accounting of what this very credible witness saw. And by the way, Mr. Zamora had a very difficult life after this, being subjected to non-stop criticism, attacks on his character from skeptics, and other unpleasant experiences until he became so tired of the subject that he started avoiding both ufologists and Air Force personnel and instead took a job managing a gasoline station. He finally died on November 2nd, 2009 from a heart attack at the age of 76, never having learned what he saw on that fateful day in 1964. It's also important to note that egg-shaped UAPs are quite commonly reported by UFO witnesses, and egg-shaped configurations are actually one of the more common shapes for UAPs, being eclipsed only by discs, fireballs, triangles, and orbs, and other, of course. Interesting to note that egg-shaped UAPs are actually more common than cigar or rectangle-shaped craft. So this is actually a fairly common thing. And then if you include the legendary Tic Tac encounters that have taken place in the 21st century, it would appear that egg-shaped UAPs are a pretty common phenomenon associated with the whole UAP subject. So is this the smoking gun we're looking for here? Is Jake Barber the star witness for a U.S. military UAP recovery program that the government has insisted for decades does not exist, but actually does? Well, there's one thing about Mr. Barber's testimony that concerns me and makes me wonder about his psychiatric stability. Just listen to this.
So as I get closer to this pick site, I start feeling odd. I start feeling extremely emotional. And the closer I get, the more the emotion starts to overwhelm me. I feel this intense hybrid of sadness and happiness and beauty and song. As I came over this object for the pick, there was this overwhelming sense of emotion. I felt like something connected with me. I felt like something had tuned in to me and my soul and was providing me some sense of guidance on what to do and how profound what I was doing was. And it was so overwhelming that I began to cry. Once it was just me and that object, in between the pick and the drop site, there's about 20 miles in between, I felt like something was inside of me. I felt like I was possessed by the most beautiful spirit I'd ever been possessed by.
Mr. Barber goes on to claim that whatever this spirit is, it's still with him today, providing him with protection. Now, I'm not so narrow-minded as to say that psychic powers don't exist, that perhaps there might be some unconventional method of artificial intelligence or whatever might have been inside this object to make a connection with a living mind that could have produced this sort of experience. But at the same time, I also have bipolar people in my family, and I've gotten to see just how extreme their delusions become, and just how convinced they become that these delusions are in fact real when they absolutely are not real. Now, let me be 100% clear here. I'm not a psychiatrist. I don't have the qualifications to diagnose somebody with a bipolar condition, nor am I saying that anybody watching this video right now who's experienced similar things are bipolar or experiencing some sort of psychiatric disease. On the other hand, though, I have witnessed delusions in person, and I know how powerful these things can be and how difficult it can be to convince somebody that their delusions are not true. So, I can't say that this is the case with Mr. Barber, but what I can say is after having listened to him, this might be the case, and I think might be the most convincing explanation as to why he believes all the things that he believes. But again, I'm not going to judge. I think that it is equally possible that what he said happened did indeed happen, and whatever he recovered that fateful night was just as mysterious and perhaps just as extraterrestrial as the object that Officer Zamora saw all the way back in 1964. Thank you very much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and also please consider supporting this channel on Patreon. As I've mentioned a couple of times, adding a new exclusive video really soon, so keep your eyes open for that. And until next time, stay angry about space.